Daniel Brooks stood frozen in the doorway of his living room. His briefcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a loud crash. What he saw shouldn't be possible. His three boys, Logan, Tyler, and Brett, were actually walking across the carpet on their own feet. And they were talking. "Mama! Mama!" Logan called out, his small voice filled with joy. "Up! Up!" Tyler reached his arms toward someone. But they weren't calling for Daniel. They weren't calling for their mother Angela, who died bringing them into this world 19 months ago. They were calling for Jasmine Cole, the 28-year-old nanny Daniel hired just 4 months back. She sat on the floor with tears running down her face. Her arms were open wide. The three boys walked toward her on shaky legs, saying their first words ever. Daniel's legs felt weak. The doctors said his boys were delayed, maybe damaged, that Angela's difficult death during their birth might have hurt them somehow. Specialists ran tests, tried therapies. Nothing worked. The boys stayed silent. They never moved from where you put them. They just sat and stared at nothing, like they were waiting for something that would never come. Until now. Until Jasmine. "How?" Daniel whispered, but his voice got lost in the sound of his sons laughing. A sound he'd never heard before in his life. Jasmine looked up and saw Daniel standing there. The happiness on her face turned to fear, like she'd been caught doing something wrong instead of creating a miracle. "Mr. Brooks, I can explain." But before she could finish, Logan stumbled and fell. Daniel jumped forward in panic. But Jasmine was faster. She caught the little boy gently and pulled him into her arms. "You're okay, sweet boy," Jasmine said softly. "You're so brave. You walked all by yourself." Logan looked up at Jasmine and smiled. A real smile that made his whole face light up. Then he said it again. The word that broke Daniel's heart and fixed it at the same time. "Mama." But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to where this all started. 7 months earlier, Daniel Brooks owned everything most people dream about. A mansion worth $38 million. 10 bedrooms. Indoor pool. Gardens that looked like magazine pictures. He was 40 years old and ran Brooks Tech Solutions, a company worth billions. He had everything money could buy, except the one thing that mattered. His wife Angela died 19 months ago. Emergency surgery. The doctors saved the triplets but couldn't save her. Daniel was in a meeting in London when he got the call. By the time his plane landed back in California, Angela was already gone. The boys came home from the hospital without a mother. Daniel hired nurses and nannies, bought the most expensive cribs and toys, the finest baby clothes, but he couldn't make himself hold them. Every time he looked at his sons, he saw Angela. He saw what he lost. He saw the choice that got made, their lives for hers. So Daniel did what he knew how to do. He worked 18 hours a day at the office or on video calls. He gave his sons everything they needed except the one thing they needed most. A father who was actually there. The nannies came and went. 8 of them in the first 16 months. Some quit because the job was too hard. Others got fired because Daniel found problems with everything they did. They held the babies wrong, fed them the wrong food, didn't follow his detailed schedules. But the real reason they left, the house felt dead. Dead from Angela's absence and Daniel's grief. Dead from the silence of 3 babies who never cried, never laughed, never made any sound at all. By the time the boys were 17 months old, Daniel was desperate. The doctors said the boys were healthy but delayed. They weren't walking, weren't talking, barely looked at anyone. Sometimes trauma affects children in ways we don't understand, Dr. Kim explained. The circumstances of their birth, the absence of their mother, the lack of steady emotional connection. All of this can stop development. "What do I do?" Daniel asked. His voice sounded empty. "You need someone who can give what you can't right now. Someone who can give these children warmth and steady presence. Someone who can make them feel safe enough to grow." Daniel had no idea that person was about to walk into his life. Jasmine Cole was 28 when she applied for the job at the Brooks mansion. She'd been working with kids since she was 19. First at a daycare, then as a nanny for rich families in Los Angeles. But Jasmine was different from the fancy, trained nannies that agencies usually sent to billionaires. Jasmine grew up in Oakland. Her aunt raised her after her own mom passed when she was little. Her aunt taught her that kids don't need expensive toys or strict schedules. They need love. Jasmine studied child development at community college while working full-time. She couldn't afford a big university, but she learned everything she could about child psychology and how kids grow. More than that, she had a natural gift for connecting with kids who were struggling. When the agency called about the Brooks job, they warned her. This is a tough placement. The father is demanding and distant. The triplets have delays. 8 nannies already quit or got fired. You sure you want to try? Tell me about the children, Jasmine said. 19-month-old triplets. Don't walk, don't talk, barely respond. Doctors say nothing's wrong physically, but something's clearly not right. Jasmine felt her heart hurt. She'd seen this before. Kids who shut down when they don't have someone steady to attach to. It wasn't about being smart or being able. It was about feeling safe enough to grow. I'll take the interview, Jasmine said. The interview with Daniel Brooks lasted exactly 10 minutes. He sat behind his huge desk in his home office. Barely looked at Jasmine when she walked in. Jasmine noticed everything about him in those first moments. The expensive suit that hung loose like he'd lost weight. The dark circles under his eyes. The wedding ring he still wore. The photo of a beautiful woman, his dead wife, turned face down on his desk like looking at it hurt too much. The boys need strict schedules, Daniel said without emotion. He didn't look at her. Feeding times, nap times, therapy appointments. Everything's written in these binders. You'll follow them exactly. You'll keep detailed notes of everything the boys do each day. You won't change the plan. Jasmine looked at the binders. 4 of them, each one thick as a phone book, filled with schedules and charts and rules. Mr. Brooks, Jasmine said gently, can I ask you something? Daniel looked up, clearly not expecting questions. His eyes met Jasmine's for the first time. She saw deep pain there. What? When's the last time you held your sons? Daniel's face went pale. That's not. When's the last time you sat on the floor and played with them? When's the last time you sang to them or read them a story? Daniel stood up fast. If you're not interested in following my instructions, I'm very interested in helping your sons, Jasmine interrupted quietly. But kids aren't machines that run on schedules. They're little people who need connection and warmth. And from what I'm hearing, that's what your boys have been missing. Daniel stared at Jasmine for a long moment. He should have been angry, should have ended the interview right there. But something in Jasmine's calm voice and the way she looked at him without judgment made him stop. Can you help them? Daniel asked. His voice cracked a little. Can you make them normal? Mr. Brooks, your sons are already normal. They're just hurting. And yes, I believe I can help them heal. Daniel hired her right then. What happened next would change everything Daniel thought he knew about his sons, about love, and about what it really means to be a parent. But first, Jasmine would have to break every rule Daniel had made. Jasmine arrived at the Brooks mansion on a Monday morning. She brought 2 suitcases, her aunt's old book of lullabies, and a heart full of hope. Mrs. Garcia, the head housekeeper, showed Jasmine to her room. Beautiful suite with its own bathroom. Then she took Jasmine to the nursery where the boys spent most of their time. The nursery looked perfect. Custom furniture. Expensive toys still in packages on shelves. Everything clean and organized. And in the middle of the room, sitting on a mat, were Logan, Tyler, and Brett. They were beautiful boys with light brown hair and serious blue eyes. They sat exactly where someone put them. Not moving. Not playing. Just staring at nothing. Jasmine felt her heart break. This is their schedule, Mrs. Garcia said, handing Jasmine one of the thick binders. Feeding at 9, noon, and 5. Nap from 1 to 3. Physical therapy at 4. Speech therapy at 6. Bath at 7. Bed at 8. Mr. Brooks reviews the daily notes every evening, so make sure you write everything down. Jasmine looked at the schedule. then at the boys, then back at the schedule. Mrs. Garcia, can I ask something? Does anyone ever just play with them? Mrs. Garcia looked uncomfortable. Play isn't on the schedule, Miss Cole. Mr. Brooks believes structure is what the boys need. After Mrs. Garcia left, Jasmine stood in the perfect, silent nursery. She made a decision. She closed the binder and set it aside. Then she sat down on the floor next to the boys.
Logan. Tile.
Hi, Brett, Jasmine said softly. My name is Jasmine. I'm going to be taking care of you, but I'm not like the other people who've been here. I'm not going to follow schedules. I'm just going to love you. The boys didn't respond, didn't even look at her. Jasmine didn't expect them to. She knew trust had to be built, not forced. So Jasmine just sat with them, didn't try to make them do anything, just stayed close, humming softly, letting them get used to her. After an hour, Jasmine slowly reached out and gently touched Logan's hand. He didn't pull away, but he didn't respond either. That's okay, sweet boy, Jasmine whispered. We have all the time we need. By the end of the first week, Jasmine had completely stopped following Daniel's schedules. She fed the boys when they seemed hungry, put them down for naps when they seemed tired, spent the rest of the time just being there with them. She talked to them constantly even though they never talked back. She sang old songs her aunt taught her. She held them, rocked them, touched their hair. And slowly, very slowly, something started to change. What Daniel didn't know was that Jasmine was keeping notes, but not the kind he wanted. While Daniel's official log showed Jasmine was following his schedules, Jasmine kept her own notebook, a simple spiral journal where she wrote what really mattered. Day 3. Logan made eye contact for 3 seconds when I was singing. First time he's really looked at anyone. Day 5. Tyler leaned into me when I held him. Didn't pull away like before. Day 9. All 3 boys smiled when I blew bubbles. Real smiles. First happy emotion I've seen. Day 13. Brett reached for a toy. First time he moved toward something he wanted. Jasmine was seeing progress. But she knew Daniel wouldn't understand it. He wanted big milestones. First steps. First words. Things he could check off a list. What Jasmine was recording was quieter but more important. The boys were learning to trust again. Learning the world could be safe and warm. They were healing from trauma Daniel didn't even know they had. By the end of the first month, the changes were clear. The boys made eye contact all the time now. They reached for Jasmine when she came in the room. They laughed at her silly faces and songs. But they still weren't walking. Still weren't talking. Daniel noticed the changes but didn't understand them. Miss Cole, the boys seem more responsive, but they still aren't hitting their milestones. The speech therapist says they should be saying words by now. Mr. Brooks, can I show you something? Jasmine asked. She opened her secret notebook and showed Daniel page after page. The boys' first real smiles. Their first reach for a toy. The day Logan let Jasmine feed him without turning away. The day Tyler fell asleep in her arms instead of staying awake and tense. These are milestones too, Jasmine said gently. Emotional milestones. Your sons are learning to feel safe. That has to come first before they can focus on walking and talking. Daniel stared at the notebook, seeing his son's progress in a way he never had before. He felt something crack open in his chest. Grief, guilt, and something else. Hope. How long? Daniel asked quietly. How long until they're normal? They're already perfect, Mr. Brooks. They just need time. And they need you. The last words hung in the air between them. Daniel looked away, unable to face that truth yet. But neither of them knew that in exactly 2 weeks, everything would change in a way that would shock them both. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. 3 months after Jasmine started working for the Brooks family. Jasmine had been feeling frustrated. The boys spent all their time inside the mansion, in controlled rooms, never experiencing the world outside. Mrs. Garcia, Jasmine said that morning, I want to take the boys to the park today. Mrs. Garcia looked shocked. Miss Cole, that's not on the schedule. Mr. Brooks doesn't allow the boys to leave the property without his permission. Then I'll ask him, Jasmine said firmly. She called Daniel at his office. Mr. Brooks, the boys need fresh air. New experiences. I want to take them to the park. Absolutely not, Daniel said immediately. It's not safe. They could get sick. Someone could hurt them. There are too many things I can't control. Mr. Brooks, your sons aren't fragile museum pieces. They're children who need to experience life. The answer is no, Miss Cole. That's final. Jasmine hung up the phone. She stood in the nursery looking at Logan, Tyler, and Brett sitting on their mat. They were making progress in the house. But Jasmine knew they needed more. They needed to feel grass, hear birds, see other kids playing. She made a decision that could cost her job. Jasmine dressed the boys in warm clothes, put them in their triple stroller, and walked out the front door. What happened next still gives me chills. Jasmine pushed the stroller through the gates of Griffith Park. Her heart pounded. She just disobeyed a direct order from her billionaire boss. She could be fired the second she got back. But when she looked down at Logan, Tyler, and Brett, their eyes wide as they saw trees, sky, heard birds and children playing, she knew she made the right choice. Look, boys, Jasmine said softly, kneeling beside the stroller. See those leaves? They're turning colors because it's autumn. And listen, can you hear the birds? For the first time since Jasmine met them, the boys looked truly alive. Their heads turned toward sounds. Their eyes followed squirrels running up trees. Jasmine found a quiet spot on the grass, away from crowds but where they could still see other children playing. She spread out a blanket and carefully lifted Logan, Tyler, and Brett from their stroller. She sat them on the soft fabric. Then Jasmine did something she'd been wanting to do for weeks. She took off the boys' shoes and socks, let their bare feet touch the grass. Tyler's eyes went huge. He looked down at his feet, feeling the cool grass between his toes. Then he laughed. A real belly laugh that made Jasmine's eyes fill with tears. Logan reached down and grabbed a handful of grass, brought it close to his face to look at it. He was curious, engaged, present in a way Jasmine had never seen. That's right, sweet boys, Jasmine whispered. The world is full of amazing things. For the next hour, Jasmine let the boys explore at their own speed. She didn't rush them or force anything, just stayed close, talking about what they were experiencing, encouraging their curiosity. Then something incredible happened. A little girl, maybe 2 years old, walked over to their blanket. She was holding a dandelion. She offered it to Tyler with a shy smile. Tyler stared at the girl for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached out his hand toward the flower. But the girl was just out of reach. The flower was just beyond Tyler's fingertips. Jasmine held her breath, didn't want to interfere. Tyler looked at the flower, then at his legs, then back at the flower. Jasmine could almost see his mind working. And then, impossibly, Tyler pushed himself up onto his knees. His legs shook, but he was holding his own weight for the first time in his life. Tyler, Jasmine gasped. You're doing it, baby. You're so strong. Tyler pushed harder, got one foot under himself, then the other. He was crouching now, his whole body trembling. The little girl giggled, held the flower out further, like she understood what Tyler was trying to do. And then Tyler stood up, actually stood on his own 2 feet, wobbling and shaking, but standing. He took one step, then another, then a third. He walked 3 whole steps before falling into Jasmine's arms. Jasmine was crying and laughing at the same time. Tyler, you walked. You did it. Logan, seeing his brother's accomplishment, looked determined. He planted his hands on the ground and pushed himself up. Took him longer. His movements were shakier. But within minutes, Logan was standing too. Brett watched his brothers. Then he did the same thing. Pushed up. Stood. Took 2 wobbly steps. All 3 boys, walking for the first time. The boys had been walking for less than 5 minutes when Jasmine heard a voice behind her that made her blood run cold. What the hell is going on here? Daniel Brooks stood at the edge of their blanket. His face was red with anger and something that looked like panic. Mr. Brooks, Jasmine stood up quickly, put herself between Daniel and the boys. I can explain. You directly disobeyed my orders, Daniel said. His voice shook. You took my sons out of the house without permission. You put them in danger. You! He stopped suddenly. Notice Tyler standing. Actually standing on his own 2 feet. Gripping Jasmine's leg for balance. Daniel's face went pale. He's standing. Yes, Jasmine said quietly. All 3 of them. They took their first steps about 10 minutes ago. Daniel stared at his sons like he was seeing them for the first time. Logan was pulling himself up using Jasmine's other leg. His face showed fierce concentration as he got his feet under him. Brett was already standing, reaching toward a butterfly. How? Daniel whispered. They needed motivation, Jasmine explained gently. They needed something they wanted badly enough to try. In the house, everything was brought to them. Out here, there's so much to explore that they had a reason to move. Daniel sank down onto the blanket. His legs couldn't hold him anymore. He watched as Logan took 2 wobbly steps toward the butterfly before falling onto his bottom. But instead of crying, Logan laughed. Immediately tried to get back up. I thought. Daniel's voice cracked. I thought keeping them safe meant keeping them inside. Controlling everything. Making sure nothing bad could happen to them. Mr. Brooks. Jasmine sat down beside him. Nothing bad happened to them today. Something wonderful happened. They discovered they could move. They could explore. They could be brave. Daniel put his face in his hands. I've been so afraid of losing them that I forgot they needed to live. Jasmine placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. It's not too late. They're still so young. There's still time to be the father they need. Daniel looked up at Jasmine. His eyes were red. I don't know how. I don't know how to be what they need. Then let me help you, Jasmine said simply. Let me show you. What happened next would begin Daniel's own healing. That evening, after the boys were bathed and in bed, Daniel asked Jasmine to meet him in his study. Jasmine walked in nervously, still expecting to be fired for disobeying him. But Daniel wasn't sitting behind his desk in his usual position of power. He was sitting in one of the chairs by the fireplace. He gestured for Jasmine to sit in the other. Miss Cole. Jasmine. I owe you an apology, Daniel began. Several apologies, actually. Jasmine stayed quiet. Let him continue. I hired you to follow my instructions. When you didn't, I was furious. But you were right to disobey me. You saw what my sons needed when I couldn't see it myself. Daniel leaned forward. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course. I blamed them, Daniel said quietly. The boys. For Angela's death. I know that's horrible. I know they're innocent. But every time I looked at them, all I could think was that she died giving them life. That they took her from me. Jasmine felt her heart ache for this broken man. Mr. Brooks. Please call me Daniel. Daniel, grief isn't logical. You can't control what you feel. But you can control what you do with those feelings. I know. And what I did was abandon my sons emotionally while convincing myself I was protecting them. I threw money at the problem instead of giving them what they actually needed. A parent who was present. Daniel looked at Jasmine with raw honesty. Watching them today in the park. Seeing them laugh and explore and take their first steps. I realized I've missed everything. All their progress. All their small victories. I've been so busy grieving Angela that I forgot to celebrate the 3 pieces of her that are still here. It's not too late, Jasmine said gently. Logan, Tyler, and Brett are still so young. You can still be part of their lives in a meaningful way. Will you help me? Daniel asked. Not just as their nanny, but as, I don't know what to call it, a partner in raising them. Someone who can teach me how to connect with them. Jasmine smiled. I'd be honored. But that's when they discovered something that would make everything even more meaningful. The next morning, Daniel made a decision he'd been avoiding for 19 months. He asked Jasmine to help him go through Angela's belongings. Angela's bedroom had been locked since her death. Daniel couldn't bear to enter it, to see her clothes still in the closet, her books on the nightstand, her perfume on the dresser. But if he was going to move forward, he needed to stop running from the past. Jasmine stood beside Daniel as he unlocked the door. The room was exactly as Angela left it, frozen in time. She was excited about the boys, Daniel said softly, running his hand over the empty crib in the corner. She'd already picked out names, decorated the nursery, read every parenting book she could find. She was going to be an amazing mother. Jasmine noticed a large wooden box on Angela's desk. What's in there? Daniel opened it carefully. Inside were dozens of items, recipes written in Angela's handwriting, a journal, photographs, and a small book of handwritten songs. She was making this for the boys, Daniel said, his voice thick with emotion. A box of memories and traditions from her family. She wanted them to know where they came from, even if... His voice trailed off. Jasmine picked up the book of songs. They were lullabies, each one carefully written out with notes about when Angela's mother sang them to her as a child. Daniel, this is beautiful. The boys should have this. They should know their mother through her words, her recipes, her songs. Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his face. I've been so focused on my grief that I forgot Logan, Tyler, and Brett lost her too. They'll never know how much she loved them, how excited she was to meet them. Then we'll show them, Jasmine said firmly. We'll cook her recipes with them. We'll sing her songs. We'll read them her journal entries about how she imagined their future. We'll make sure they know Angela not as a tragedy, but as their mother who loved them before she ever met them. That afternoon, Jasmine and Daniel sat on the floor of the nursery with Logan, Tyler, and Brett. Between them was Angela's box. Boys, Daniel said, his voice shaking slightly. I want to tell you about your mama. Your first mama who loved you so much. Jasmine opened the lullaby book and began to sing one of Angela's songs. A gentle melody about stars and dreams and love that lasts forever. As Jasmine sang, something extraordinary happened. The boys, who had only just started making sounds, began to hum along, not with words, but with little melodic sounds that matched the tune. Daniel watched in amazement. How are they doing that? Music is one of the first things babies recognize, Jasmine explained softly. Some researchers think babies can hear and remember songs from when they were in the womb. Daniel's eyes widened. You think they remember Angela singing to them? Maybe. Or maybe they just recognize something that feels like love. Daniel reached out and picked up Logan, holding his son properly for the first time in months. Logan looked up at his father with curious eyes, then reached up and touched Daniel's face.
Buddhi, Daniel whispered.
I'm your daddy, and I'm sorry it took me so long to really see you. Tyler and Brett crawled over, pulled themselves up using Daniel's knees. Daniel laughed through his tears, picked up Tyler and Brett too, held all three sons for the first time since they'd come home from the hospital. Jasmine watched this moment of healing with tears streaming down her face. This was what she'd been working toward, not just getting the boys to walk and talk, but helping this broken family find each other again. Over the next few months, everything changed in the Brooks house. Daniel rearranged his work schedule to spend mornings and evenings with the boys. He sat on the floor with them, played with them, read to them. He learned to change diapers, make bottles, soothe them when they cried. And most importantly, he started to heal. Jasmine taught Daniel how to engage with Logan, Tyler, and Brett. She showed him games that encouraged their development, songs that made them laugh, ways to communicate that built trust and connection. Daniel and Jasmine worked together as a team, co-parenting the boys in a way that felt natural and right. The mansion that had been silent and sad for so long was now filled with laughter, music, and the sound of three little boys babbling and experimenting with their voices. One evening about 4 months after the day at the park, Daniel was sitting on the floor building a tower of blocks with Logan while Jasmine helped Tyler and Brett practice walking. Daniel stacked the blocks carefully, made the tower as tall as he could. Ready, Logan? Watch Daddy knock it down. Daniel pushed the tower over. The blocks scattered everywhere. Logan squealed with delight and clapped his hands. Then, clear as a bell, Logan said his second word. Dada. Daniel froze. Did he just? Dada.
Dada.
Logan repeated, pointing at Daniel with a huge smile. Tyler and Brett, not wanting to be left out, toddled over to Daniel and grabbed his sleeves. Dada! They echoed together. Daniel pulled all three boys into his arms, sobbing with joy. Yes, yes, I'm your dada. I'm here, boys. I'm finally here. Jasmine watched from across the room, her heart full. This was what success looked like. Not just boys who could walk and talk, but a father who had found his way back to life and love. 2 weeks later, Daniel's brother Marcus came to visit from Boston. He was shocked by the transformation. Daniel looked healthier, happier, more alive than he had in years. And the boys were running around, chattering, laughing, completely different from the silent, still babies he remembered. But Marcus noticed something else. Jasmine's role in the family. Daniel, can we talk privately? Marcus asked after dinner. In Daniel's study, Marcus got straight to the point. I'm concerned about your relationship with the nanny. Jasmine? What about her? She seems very involved. The boys call her Mama. You two work together like partners. I'm just worried about boundaries. Daniel felt defensive. Jasmine saved my son's lives, Marcus. Not literally, but emotionally. She gave them what I couldn't give them. I understand that. But Daniel, what happens long term? If she moves on to another job, the boys will be devastated. Daniel hadn't thought about that. The idea of Jasmine leaving made his chest tight with anxiety. Not because of romantic feelings, but because she'd become essential to their family. I need to think about this, Daniel admitted. That night, Daniel asked Jasmine for another conversation. Jasmine, I need to ask you something important, Daniel began. What do you see as your future with our family? Jasmine looked surprised. What do you mean? Your role has evolved beyond a typical nanny position. The boys call you Mama. We make parenting decisions together. You're not just their caregiver. You're a central part of their lives. But we've never talked about whether that's sustainable long-term. Jasmine was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Daniel, I love Logan, Tyler, and Brett like they're my own children. When they call me Mama, it makes my heart full. But I also know they're not my children. They're yours. But they need you, Daniel said. I need you. Not romantically, he added quickly, but as a co-parent, as a partner in raising them. I can't imagine doing this without you. Then what are you asking? I'm asking if you would consider staying permanently, not as an employee but as a guardian, a second parent. We could draw up legal agreements that give you parental rights. Make sure you're always part of their lives. Jasmine felt tears in her eyes. You would do that? Jasmine, you've given me my life back. You've helped my sons become the happy, healthy children they're meant to be. I trust you completely. The question is, do you want this? Do you want to be tied to this family permanently? Yes, Jasmine said simply. Yes, I want to be part of this family. Not because of money or security, but because I love those boys and I want to be there for every milestone, every challenge, every moment of their lives. Daniel smiled with relief. Then let's make it official. Over the next few months, Jasmine's role in the family was formally recognized. She had legal rights as the boys' co-parent, equal say in all decisions about their care, education, and future. She became, in every way that mattered, their second parent. The boys thrived with two parents who loved them, who worked together to meet their needs, who showed them through actions what family really meant. On the boys' second birthday, Daniel and Jasmine threw them a party in the garden. Small gathering, just family and a few close friends, but filled with love and laughter. As Daniel watched Logan, Tyler, and Brett run around playing with other children, he marveled at how far they'd all come. 2 years ago, he'd been drowning in grief, convinced his sons would never be normal. Now, watching them laugh and play, he realized they weren't just normal. They were extraordinary. Jasmine came to stand beside him, holding 2 pieces of birthday cake. Can you believe how much they've grown? Jasmine asked. Because of you, Daniel said. You saved us, Jasmine. All 4 of us. Jasmine shook her head. We saved each other. You gave me a family when I didn't have one. The boys gave me purpose. And together we all learned to heal. As the sun set over the garden and the boys blew out their candles surrounded by people who loved them, Daniel thought about everything that had changed. His sons had learned to walk and talk. But more importantly, they'd learned to trust, to love, to be brave. And Daniel had learned the most important lesson of all. Healing doesn't come from control or protection. It comes from connection, from letting people in, from being vulnerable enough to accept help from someone you never expected would save your life. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expected. Sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves us through the hard times. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give our children isn't protection from every danger. It's the freedom to explore, to grow, to become exactly who they're meant to be. If the story touched your heart, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to heal. Never too late to choose love over fear. Drop a comment and tell me about a time someone saw something in you that no one else did. And subscribe to Tales Cleave for more stories that matter. Stories that remind us what it means to be human. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all need. Someone who sees us. Someone who stays. Someone who believes we're worth the effort.